Happy Monday and welcome back to another wonderful week here at the Rocketeer Minute, where every day, Monday through Friday, we go over 1 minute of the greatest adventure movie Walt Disney's ever made, the 1991 Joe Johnston-directed feature, The Rocketeer. I'm one of your hosts, Jim O'Kane of TVDads.com.
And I'm Hal Bryan, an airplane nerd from the Experimental Aircraft Association here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And Jim, I think I hear it.
You're listening to a special Billy Campbell episode on the Rocketeer Minute. Ladies and gentlemen, Billy Campbell.
Well, I don't know what to say, boys. It doesn't get any better than that. It doesn't get any better.
You know, when you have your own fanfare, that's exactly the important thing.
As long as you promise, Billy, when you start a podcast and we come on as guests, you give us a special theme. I think that's only fair.
I'm going to hum your special theme.
Wow.
Even better, a raw live performance.
Yeah.
That's one of my many questions. I keep writing these things down in the interim between. By the way, thank you, Billy, for being on the show again. But I always wonder. I have a list of questions when in our off time of what to ask. If you were going to have a movies by minute podcast, which movie would you do? Do you think?
If I was going to do one,
yeah.
The first thing that pops into my head is Dracula. Bram Stoker's Dracula.
That would be something. Yeah, that would be an amazing thing to host. And
yeah, that really would be. You know, I haven't watched that in ages. It's in my library and my ridiculous movie shelves downstairs, but I haven't watched it in forever.
I just ordered it on Blu-ray, so it's sitting on the table waiting for me to get a Blu-ray player.
all you got to do is cut it into minutes, and everything you'll be ready to go.
Easy as pie.
But it's such a juicy movie. I mean, so to speak. I think it would really lend itself to being dissected.
Oh yeah.
Or nitpicked.
Well, yeah, and there's so many directions to go in it. You know, it's just the film production itself, and then the background of Dracula, and different versions of how it was done. Yeah, interesting idea. How do you have a plan? Do you have another minute that you'd want to do?
Boy, we've sort of jokingly referred to the Great Waldo Pepper. I think that would be such a fun one to dive into and do. You know, anything like that. The Battle of Britain, another great classic aviation movie. Those magnificent men in their flying machines. Obviously, there's a theme here for me from aviation movies.
Let me see if I can guess what it is.
See if you can suss that out. Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, that's. That was my ticket into this world was being the airplane nerd. But I joke because in a room full of movie people, I'm the airplane guy, and in a room full of airplane guys, I'm the movie nerd. So wherever you place me, I'm slightly out of context.
Oh.
Wow. Well, we're starting off the week with Jenny leading Cliff off of the set of The Laughing Bandit. And Cliff's trying to be the right guy. He's trying to do the good thing here. You know, he remembered after eating his hamburger last night at the Bulldog, thinking, "What can I do to help Jenny out?" And one of the things
now I'm gonna involve her.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it just
this seems like a good idea.
Yeah, it all goes pear-shaped.
Ah, gosh, yeah. If only Neville hadn't found out. But it's great. I love the backstage stuff. There's so many, the lighting and all that, and just wandering around with all the
grease pencil written on the flats to identify, which piece goes where.
Yeah, the details are wonderful. I remember being really, really having a good deal of fun with it. And when I come into the scene, I think I come through a stage door, and it's. It's an actual stage door. It's the movie within the movie. So it was just kind of a really fun sequence to. Though I did have a bit of sword envy. I really wished that I had that somehow it had been written so that I accidentally have to defend myself with a sword or something.
I'm willing to bet that Timothy Dalton had a bit of rocket envy. So
he might have had a little bit of rocket envy to you could say that.
Yeah, but I mean, but how you get to be the? I mean, this is 2 weeks after Robin Hood had premiered. The unfortunately cast Kevin Costner vehicle.
Oh
but
my goodness!
I would think who wouldn't want to play Robin Hood? I mean, this is such a you get to dress up in the tights, and and you were just coming off a Ren Fair, so I would imagine that this whole thing would be.
It's true.
All those great broadswords and stuff. But
Billy, have you ever been on a set where a flat fell over like that?
No, I don't think I have. I've been in a play. I did a play in fact, my first professional job was in a play in Chicago at the Beacon Street Theater. It was a live audience participatory show called Dungeon Master. It was it was essentially Dungeons and Dragons on stage, and we had one evening where an entire castle fell apart. It wasn't meant to, and it fell apart, and it's a miracle really that no one was injured.
Wow.
And the play went on.
As it always does. I once broke a toe on stage in the middle of a play, and and the show went on. What choice did we have?
Yeah.
But, I never brought down a castle.
I once had to play the snake in the Garden of Eden, and I had to do these flame effects with my hands. And I had nitrocellulose paper in my hand that I would throw into the air that would catch fire and burn. And one of them caught on my thumb as I was throwing it, and I had to get it off my thumb quickly, and I dropped it down onto Eve, who was seated below me wearing a flesh-tone leotard, and she bore it up very well. Just did let the thing burn, but she didn't get hurt. But all the little tragedies of acting.
Her flesh-tone leotard turned to burnt sienna.
Yeah, exactly. It was a Crayola nightmare.
Oh, very poetic.
But great. You can obviously tell Dalton was really chewing up the scene. He loved, the whole lurking and skulking. And
of quite a few performances of his that I have enjoyed, I think this really is the one I enjoy the most. He just was magnificent in the role, I have to say. And he was having such fun.
It's how often have you played the bad guy? And is it more fun to be the bad guy?
I always answer yes, because there are simply more options for behavior. As a good guy, you're relatively constrained. You're a good guy. I mean, you don't pretend to be something you're not. But bad guy can be all over the map, and no one ever really let me play a bad guy until I did the film with Jennifer Lopez, and then I was constantly being hired to play a bad guy.
Yeah, I was thinking the Ted Bundy role.
The Ted Bundy thing, and I did a little Western. There was a show called Dead Man's Gun, shooting in Vancouver. In fact, that was the first time I ever went to Vancouver to do Dead Man's Gun. I played a bad gunslinger come to town, and it really opened that up for me, and I have to say I kind of enjoy it. I really enjoy it. It's I spent a lot of my time playing because I had kind of a baby face into my almost 40s, and no one hardly ever let me play men, like grown men, and I was either somebody's boyfriend or just always nice guys, the guy next door.
Yeah.
And I really, really, really am grateful that movie with Jennifer came along.
Wow.
And later in this film, you get to play a very bad waiter, which is so close, but not exactly what you had in mind.
Yeah. It's just great watching. I guess you didn't get to play Evil Lincoln. That would have been put a whole different turn on things.
Evil Lincoln.
Evil Lincoln.
Now there's a podcast I do. Yeah. Minute by minute take on Evil Lincoln.
Evil Lincoln. What is it? There was a Lincoln, a vampire hunter Lincoln.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there was.
Oh well, the casting people never called though. Oh well. We get to the part where poor Jenny Blake is trying. She has this role. She's gonna be wonderful for the role, and then she gets handed a pink slip for saying the director wants you off the picture.
And that's so perfectly timed. This is a good job. The director thinks I'm talented, and then just boom. Here's your pay voucher. Director wants you off the.
It's almost like they wrote it that way. It's amazing. It is. I really, really love this sequence. I love this whole movie. If you haven't quite caught that,
as do we.
It's a hug,
obviously.
Yeah. I have a question about this movie. When you get booked for this movie and they hand you a contract, it's like, here, you're going to play the role of the Rocketeer, to sign here. Who are you working for? Are you a contractor, or are you working for Walt Disney Pictures or Silver Screen Partners? Like, who's the other side of that contract? Who do you work for?
It's me. I'm an independent contractor, but at that point, as I recall, I had signed a contract for three pictures, 3 films, and. I think I told you this story. Did I tell this in a podcast?
You said that you were signed up for 3, but then
the movie didn't perform like they had hoped. And in fact, I'm not so sure. I think Disney needed to call it a loss because I don't think it lost money, but it wasn't the hit they wanted.
Yeah,
and so it was more convenient for them to call it a loss. Happens all the time. Movie studios call movies losses and write them off. But there was also the relationship, to put it mildly, the acrimonious relationship between Joe and the studio.
Yeah.
So there was just not going to be a sequel, and so the 3-picture thing was a moot point after that.
Is it still active? I mean, could they ever call you back and say, by the way, okay, it was after a certain amount of time.
And in fact, when my agent called me and said they want a 3-picture thing, like you have to do, 2 more movies for them, and I said, well, no, I don't want to have to do that. What if I don't like the movies? And he's like, well, you probably have to do them anyway. I'm like, well, no, I don't want to do that. And so he went to Disney, called Disney and said, my client doesn't really want to do that. And they got really nasty about it. They were like, I mean, I only heard what my agent reported back to me, and he sort of glossed it over. But he said, it kind of amounts to, who the heck do you think you are? You've never done a film, and blah, blah, blah. And in fact, Sparky, I can never remember his name.
Yeah, from Geffen and
head of the studio, Katzenberg.
Yeah, Katzenberg.
When I ran up to the office to show some wardrobe to Katzenberg one day, it was the first time I'd met him. He came up the hallway and shook my hand, and he said, and I quote, "Sorry about all that Disney crap," and he was talking about how they had sort of berated me for not wanting a 3-picture deal. I was really working for me. I work for me. I'm an independent contractor, and it's not like the old days when you work for a studio.
Yeah, so you didn't get the 10% off at the Disney stores and things like that, or
I think I did actually, but there was just nothing from the Disney store I wanted.
Yeah. Oh well. Anyway, poor Jenny gets fired for at least for this minute. She's been fired. And has to walk off. It's amazing the number of coffee cups that are piled on every single flat behind. I mean, there must be like a Starbucks or proto Starbucks around the corner.
I think that was, as I recall, sort of an inside joke. I think I recall that happening. Joe saying, "No, more coffee cups." It's like everybody parks a coffee cup, and I do it all the time. I park my coffee cup on the back of a flat, probably a few times a day.
Wow. Yeah.
Speaking of the flats, just very quickly, for me, an interesting little bit of flea picking. Probably old news to you, Billy. But the stencils on the backs of the flats with the IATSE, the union, the international IATSE is what we call. Okay,
Yeah.
Jim, when we had Rihanna Black on, we were talking about unions a bit, talking about SAG and AFTRA, and then we talked about the Motion Picture Stunt Pilots Association, actually predating SAG a little bit in the 30s. What I had no idea, but this IATSE was started in 1893.
Yeah.
So going back, way far, relatively speaking.
Well, and they were not just for movies; they were for like Broadway and
Sure,
theatrical
yes,
things.
theatrical and stage. That's the T and the
Yeah.
S in the middle there. But
and and you'll see that bug on a lot of things, and in a lot of movies. If you watch all the way to the end, you'll see you might see that bug.
Oh, sure, yeah,
at the bottom of all the crawl.
Into the credits. It's great too. Later in this minute, just sort of randomly, but that sign back there, the trap door, keep clear, with the arrow pointing down. And that's got an almost sort of Wile E. Coyote sort of,
Acme
right.
Door Company,
free bird seed kind of a thing. Like the Roadrunner's going to come
fall
up.
into that, and you find yourself in a different movie.
Yeah,
Exactly. Well, you're already sort of in two as it is in this.
That's
scene.
right.
It's just amazing the amount of gear that's just laying around, the Fresnel lenses, and of course the stage lights that are just parked there for finding your way around in the back. And I just keep thinking these things are multi-service, as they're both a prop and had to be called on the call sheet of what they needed to address the scene, as well as as being listed. They were probably dragging them out of other parts of the studio to put it here, but you had to make sure it was on the stage when they were doing it. So it must have been a very confusing prop setup.
It was. There were a lot of props around. It was sometimes a little confusing. Like where does the movie set end and the crew begin? You could, if you weren't careful, you could find yourself sort of walking into the real life movie instead of the one that's on film.
I watched the original Robin Hood with Errol Flynn the other night, and it's it's funny, that whole the half circle staircase going up the side. It's like it's all out of that movie.
Yeah.
And just really putting, and it was filmed in 1938, so all this is going on at the same time, and it's just really. It just goes. It shows how much of this movie, like the background of it, just fits into everything, and you can almost imagine Basil Rathbone or somebody else showing up on stage.
Yes. Basil Rathbone. I haven't thought about him in ages. He was my favorite to this day. My favorite Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
when I read, how it is when you read a book, you read something, and you sort of automatically you cast people in parts. And my whole time when I was reading the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, well, the Lord of the Rings, because he's not in the Hobbit, I don't think. But for me, Strider is Basil Rathbone. That's who I pictured in the part.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah, well, I mean, every time when I watch The Princess Bride, we have our friends doing the Princess Bride Minute, but when you see Count Rugen in there, Christopher Guest plays him, but that is just like spot on the Basil Rathbone part from Robin Hood, the little goatee and stuff like that, and the hair and things
except
like
I think for the extra finger. But,
that's right. Yeah.
Otherwise, great when as we wander through the details in this minute, and you've got Timothy Dalton looking especially sulky there. He sits in his chair somewhere. I'm looking at about second 13, and tucked into the pouch of his chair, there's what has to be a copy of Variety. So you just see the Y, the Y sticking up there, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to find out that was the right issue for this October 15th, 1938 time frame. But
I bet it is.
I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest.
No, I bet it is. They were just great that way.
Where was this in the filming, in the order of filming? Was this an early scene? Was this a late scene that you filmed?
I don't recall. I really don't recall.
Yeah, the only physical clues on some of these things is I watch poor Jennifer Connelly's eye, because she has this thigh that develops in her eye, and it's in this scene, and it's in the South Sea, so I know those two scenes are
then
close together.
Then it was a little bit later on. then it was a little bit later on.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't early in the film. I know
And
that.
I noticed that your hair is a little bit shorter, so I'm assuming that your hair was longer in the earlier scenes, and they kept trimming, and you have really short hair in this one. This is one of the shortest hair scenes in the film.
That makes some sense, though. I don't know why they wouldn't have just kept it the same length.
I don't know. The total shooting time was 6 weeks or 7 weeks, I think.
I always wished I did have at one point a call sheet and a Bulldog Cafe menu, which I think I told you I gave to a Navy SEAL. But I really wish that I had saved all the call sheets from the whole movie.
No kidding.
It just never occurred to me. And I think I'm not even sure I have the script anymore. My original script that I made all my markings in.
I've been my master's thesis involved in space studies, but I did some work on involving the movie Marooned, Columbia Pictures Gregory Peck movie, and one of the side ventures of doing this was I wound up going to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences out in Beverly Hills, and they have a huge collection of different actors' scripts, and I got to see Gregory Peck's copy of his role in Marooned. He played the head of NASA.
Oh, that's cool.
And in every other line, he's like, "Why would I say this?" And he's like underlining things and crossing stuff out. And apparently, he had some big arguments with both the director and the producer.
Yeah.
This isn't right. I'd never say anything like. So he had quite a say in the movie.
I don't think I'd have the guts to say no to Gregory Peck. I don't think I'd look him in the eye and say
I don't
no.
think I would either. I mean, for
Play it
God's
as
sake,
written, sir.
It's Gregory Peck. Do as you please, Mr. Peck. I remember that reminds me of a story of who was it? High Noon. It was the wonderful actor
Gary Cooper?
Gary Cooper.
Yes.
And somebody somewhere along the way told me the story of Gary Cooper, and how he was just very, very low key and very sort of what's the word, convivial or something. He was just very friendly and non-confrontational. And somebody would say, Gary, can you do this line in this way? Or maybe Gary would say a line, and change it to something he wanted to say. And they would say, okay, well, can you do it again, with the original dialogue, the dialogue as written? And he would say, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do that, okay. And then they would do another take, and he would do it exactly as he did it the next time. And they said, "Oh, Mr. Cooper, can we? That's terrific, but that's how you did it last time. Let's this time." And he'd go, "Oh, yeah, okay, absolutely." And he would do it exactly the same again. He just never argued. He never once apparently argued. He just did it his way.
And he seems easy to work with, but
that's
fantastic.
I'm terribly easy to work with. But,
I just keep going back and forth over that second 40 where poor Jenny Blake gets the news, and it's just that it's like hearing tinkling glass,
right?
Just getting crushed, and it's
poor gal.
And if I had, go ahead, Bill.
You go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I had to guess, we've talked on other episodes a little bit about ADR and looping dialogue and things. You got Charles Stavola here as the assistant director, and there's something about his voice. His back is to us when he's handing Jennifer Connelly the pay voucher, and there's something about his voice that sounds so rich and so clear that I'm wondering if that's an example, like a really almost too obvious example of somebody going in and doing dialogue after the fact.
I think it probably was a dialogue. I don't think you ever see his mouth moving. And in those cases, they save a little money. They often put dialogue into the mouths of background actors who are just miming, and in that way, they have something called the loop group, which is a bunch of voice actors, and they bring them in to do. I think they call it Walla Walla. As in
Walla
background,
Walla, Washington.
Yeah, Walla Walla, Washington. As in sort of background dialogue and so forth. And in this case, I strongly suspect that that actor was not voicing that dialogue.
It certainly doesn't sound like it. So you get a bit of it, like Gert Frobe, who played the title character of Goldfinger in the Bond film. His accent was so thick and so heavy that they just couldn't use it. So I think every word of his was redone after the fact. Well, maybe by the same guy. It's hard to say. And I'm sorry, but you said Walla Walla. I have to point out that when I was working on my private pilot's license, we have to do these series of cross-country flights of greater and greater distances to prove that we can do it. And the last big one I did before I had passed and everything was set, one of my stops was in Walla Walla, Washington.
Wow, that's across the whole state, basically. If you're on
pretty much,
Walla Walla.
from where I was starting. So
my ADR example is always Aunt Beru from Star Wars, because she had a she had a not only I think it was an Australian accent, but she had a very hoarse, deep voice, and there isn't a single line of hers that is original Beru.
Yeah. Sheila Fraser. Yeah.
Yeah. How were you mic'd in this? Was it just two booms? Was it?
I don't recall. I really don't recall. I think there was a lot of boom miking. I'm not sure that the technology at that point for the radio mics was as well. It certainly wasn't as good as it is today. And so even if we were with radio mics, we probably also there was a boom mic in there somewhere.
Okay, yeah. I think of the lavaliers, kind of easy to hide in all that clothing that you have.
Easy to hide, but I think I seem to recall that they also backed it up with a boom mic.
Okay, yeah, just a great scene. I mean, it leaves you're even poor Cliff is in worse off shape than when he started. He was trying to do the right thing, and he just dug a bigger hole.
Exactly.
Yes.
And another case of him, intentionally or not, completely belittling poor Jenny's choice of career when, in 1938, it's hard to say, air race pilot, turned Rocketeer versus struggling actress, which one really was the more stable profession, and neither of them had a ton going for them, as exciting as that would have been. No. And, I love it later in the minute when, Dalton's been listening to this, and you see his head appear out from between the flats, and he grabs the brace. He just sort of leaps out. He just cannot get out there fast enough because he's got some skullduggery he's got to get up to.
He's got his own career of lead actor / fifth columnist, criminal mastermind that he's got to hang on to. So,
and the third. What was the great line? The number 3 box office star in America.
And then the riposte, the number 3 jerk.
Yeah, that's right. Which was, of course, a stellar improv
from Paul Sorvino.
Paul Sorvino. Yeah.
Oh, really? That was improv, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yes, and punctuated by the tossing of the cigar.
Tossing of the cigar. Exactly. He was absolutely priceless, Sorvino.
So, Jim, when we get to that minute, we can say that was improvised, and we'll sound like we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, as everybody knows, you see.
Yes. Wow. But a great minute, and many minutes more to come. So let's hang on to all these other things. Billy, you'll be on future episodes, I'm sure.
Indeed, I will.
And we don't know when, but I'm even thinking there might be some later this week. So people need to check back. There could be some in the near future. Let's put it that way. But for folks who would like to talk some more or have some other off-site questions for Mr. Campbell or for Mr. Bryan or for me, we'd be happy to take your questions at a bunch of different social media. At Twitter, you can find us at Rocketeer Minute. You can find us on Facebook at Rocketeer Minute Facebook.com/Rocketeer Minute. Also at the great big website of RocketeerMinute.com. There's also some cool swag where you can get cool little Billy Campbell action figures that are sold by Amazon. He's in a helmet, but he's underneath the helmet. Don't worry about that.
Actually, the big one, the helmet's removable. I'm sorry that I know that, Billy.
Wow.
But You know me well enough by now.
Yes.
Yes,
So
I do.
it's all out there on Amazon, and they're happy to take your money, I'm sure. So check all that out at rocketeerminute.com. Please, if you haven't done so already, and we're half an hour in, so you might as well just start it up and get this going. Go to either iTunes or Google Play, type in Rocketeer Minute, and hit subscribe once we come up, and you can get us delivered hot and fresh every single morning. Please leave a review at iTunes or Google Play to let people know how much you love this show, like we do, like Billy does, and other people will find out, and more people will join in, and we'll have even more questions and things to talk about. And we've only got about another hour, 10 minutes worth of this movie to go, so please get those questions in fast. But we will pick this up tomorrow here on another exciting episode of the Rocketeer Minute. So until next time, over and out.
Over and out, boys. I look forward to it.